Hello guys, hope you all are doing good. I welcome you to this video. So today we are going to see how to get started with AWS CLI, and first of all we'll set up the AWS CLI, and once we have done that we'll move forward and work our way around with AWS CLI and check out few AWS services such as KeyPairs, SecurityGroups, and adding rules into SecurityGroups, and we'll do all of this with the help of AWS CLI. So we aren't going to use much of AWS GUI console today. We'll just use that for verification of our output. So few other services that we'll look into are launching instances and creating AWS volumes. So we'll look into the AWS storage and how to attach the volumes into instances, and all of this are going to be done with the help of AWS CLI. So things to be done before setting up the AWS CLI is that you guys should have an AWS account. So if you have an account, it's good. If you don't have an account, please go ahead and create an AWS free tier account. It's easy and simple, and the procedure is mentioned along the steps that you need to follow, and it's valid till 12 months, and you get free services that you can use under the free tier account. Right, so once you have done the account, you can log into your console, and once you have the console, you can go ahead and browse through the services, and one of the services that we are going to use is IAM. So the main reason of creating an IAM user is basically when you are working with AWS CLI, you need to log into something and one of your account. So it's better not to use your root account or your main account. That account is meant for checking all the billing and everything. So you can create an IAM user for that purpose, and it's very simple. So you just go ahead and create a new user, provide a username, and you just provide programmatic access because you want to use it through the AWS CLI. So that is why you will give the programmatic access, and if you want to give a password, and if you want to log into your account through the AWS console as well, so go ahead and check both of them, as we are going to use just with the AWS CLI. So we are going to use the access key and the secret key for this purpose, right? So we'll go ahead and next we'll create permission for the user. So within this we'll go ahead with the existing policies, and there are main two policies. You can go ahead and browse the policies. There are many policies regarding EC2 instance, or some policies are meant for some services. So in a way you can restrict the user you are creating through IAM. So for this we are going to use a power user. So a power user will suffice our need as for now. So we are going to go ahead with the power user, and then we'll add a tag. It's optional, so you can add if you want to, and then once it's done you can create a user. So once the user is created, you can see that the test user is created, and you get an option to download the CSV. So basically the CSV contain the access key ID and the secret access key. So please make sure that this access key ID and secret access key is just available to you and nobody else, because if anyone has access to this, they can log into your AWS account, right? So go ahead and download this, and once you download this, it will be a CSV file, so which we'll use later. So once this is done, you can go ahead and download the AWS CLI. So you can go to the AWS official website for downloading the AWS CLI. It's available for 3 OS, Linux, Mac OS, and Windows. So go ahead and choose your OS and install the AWS CLI for your respective OS, right? So as I'm using Linux, I've already installed, and it's pretty simple. Just follow the steps and go ahead and install it, right? So once this is done, you can go ahead and you can confirm the installation using the command AWS version. So once this is done, you'll get to know that it is installed and it's ready to use, right? So before you use it, we need to configure the AWS. So The main reason for configuration is that the AWS CLI that is being accessed from your base OS needs an account to operate with, right? So in that situation, to link the account with the base OS and mainly the AWS CLI, so we need to configure the AWS CLI. So go ahead and execute this command, AWS configure, right? So once you need to configure and you get AWS access key ID, just go to the file that you downloaded and just open that file. And once you do that, you'll get to see access key ID. By chance you get to see my secret access key and access key ID, but anyways I'll delete this after this video. So it's private, so don't disclose this to anyone, right? So go ahead, copy this access key ID, and then once it's done, paste it here. So I'm not doing that because I already have an account configured. So, and then same for the secret access key, go ahead, copy the secret access key, and you can go ahead and paste it here. Once it's done, then you can go ahead and choose the default region name, right? So so once it's done, you get the default output format, default, and it will take by itself, no worries, right? So once it's done, you are good to go, and you are ready to use AWS CLI. So we'll go ahead and start with by creating a key pair. So if you don't know anything about AWS CLI usage or functionalities or the commands, you can go ahead and type the help. Now the one basic thing is we are going to use the EC2 because all of the services that I mentioned are in regards to the EC2. So EC2 is like the main command for us, and along with that we will provide other options or parameters, and if you don't know what options they are, you can go ahead and take the help. And with the help option, you can see you will receive a lot of available commands and the description of what EC2 is. So whatever you want to choose, you go ahead and choose that. For now we will choose the create key pair, right? So I'll go ahead and create a key pair, right? So now we got to provide the options. So as you can see, it's under the synopsis. It means the options or the parameters that we need to use. So the key name is one of the required parameters, and along with that we have other parameters, but they are not required, but the key name is required. So we require this to create the key pair, right? So we'll go ahead and use the create key pair command along with the key pair name, right? So you can go ahead and give any key pair name you want, and I'll just give CLI key. And as you can see that we have the key pair created. Now we can also confirm this by visiting the GUI console of AWS, and we can see that the CLI key is created, right? So now once we have the key created, we'll go ahead and create the security group. So the command is the same. It will start with the create because we want to create something, and then we'll put in security group. Now the further parameters, we can take the help, and we can see that the two required parameters are group name and description, right? So along with that we'll go ahead and put the group name that we want. For now I will select it as security group CLI, and you can put in any description you want. For now we'll put it as security group created by AWS CLI, right? So once we go ahead and create this, we received one error. It says that this security group is already created, so I'll go ahead and put a numeric along with it. I think this will work. Right, so the security group is now created, and we have the group ID as well. So one more important thing, guys, is that while we are trying to create the instance, we need to put in all these parameters, and along with that we need to put in all these IDs. So it will be best if you go ahead and copy these IDs, so that later you don't have to search for them, right? So we'll go ahead and create one simple document, and we'll just put in security group ID, right? And I'll just paste it here, right? So we'll go ahead and do the same for the key pair. So we have a command, describe key pairs. So it will give us all the key pairs that is currently present in my account along with the key pair IDs, right? So for the key pair that we are going to use, CLI key, the key pair ID is this one. So I'll go ahead and also copy this one, right? So once this is done, now we'll go ahead and create the rules, right? So for creating the rules, you have to update if there are any rules present in the security group, or if any rules are not present, you need to put the new rules into the security group. Now for this, you can go ahead and search for AWS CLI SG Ingress rules, right? If you go ahead and search this, it'll get a lot of links, and the official documentation of AWS is always present. So you don't need to remember all of these commands. It's available everywhere. So you can go ahead and browse through the document. You can see that it's present with the name of synopsis, and under that the command is present, authorize security group ingress. So we need to run this command once we have created the security group, which we have already created, and we can see it being created, right? So I'll go ahead and confirm this from my console, that if it's created or not. Let us see. Yeah, it's created, right? So now I'll go ahead and put in rules. For that, I have already typed in the command previously, so I just copied it, and now I'm going to just paste it in my terminal, and we are going to use that, right? So this will create the security group for the group that will be mentioned with the group ID. So for the group ID, as I said, that you should have a document prepared with all the IDs, because you'll require this, right? So I'll copy in my group ID as well, right? So now we will go through the command. It says that within the EC2 we want to put in some rules for ingress, and the group ID for the security group is this one, and the protocol that we chose is TCP for the port number 22, which is the SSH port, right? So for accessing the AWS instance, we need this SSH port to be enabled from the particular IP that you provide, or for this I have provided anywhere, right? So I'll go ahead and put this rule. Yeah, so the rule is added, and we can confirm it by going to the security group, and we will see that the rule is already added under inbound rules, right? So now once we have the security group configured, we can go ahead and create the instance. So for creating the instance, we can go ahead and take the help, and under the help, as you so we'll go ahead and use the run instance, right? And within this we need to see what all parameters we need to provide. So as we can see that within this we need to provide the image ID, which is one of the most important thing. and that will decide the image that I want to associate with my instance. And then we need to select the instance type as well. So the instance type will select that how many CPUs or what will be the configuration of the CPU that we need to be attached with the OS, right? So and we also need to provide the key name, and there are a few other parameters that are very important. So we'll go ahead, and you guys can go through the documentation of AWS for this as well, and you just need to type AWS run instances using CLI, right? So once you do that, it get the official documentation, and you guys can see that it is officially documented with all the details about the parameters and everything mentioned, right? So I have already typed in the command for the run instances, so I'll just go ahead and copy this, right? So now I'll just paste the command, and I need to provide all the IDs for this, right? So one more thing is there that we need the subnet ID. Now for getting the subnet ID, you can go ahead and get from the GUI console. Right from here you can go to VPC, and under the VPCs we have the subnets, and within the subnets we have the subnet IDs, right? So you can also do the same thing from the CLI. For example, let me open another terminal, and let me type in the command describe subnet, right? So once you execute this command, you can see that we will have all the subnets available, right, along with the subnet ID. So as I can see that this subnet ID is for AP South 1B, so I'll go ahead and choose this subnet, right, and I'll just paste it within the subnet ID. Same we can do for the key name. By chance I remember the key name, which was CLI key, right? So the instance type that we are going to use is T2 micro. Now T2 micro is the free tier instance type, right? So you can go ahead and check which is the free tier instance type. So for the images also, you can see that Amazon, Linux to AMI, Red Hat, SUSE, Ubuntu, these are all under free tier, so we can use any one of those, right? So for now I'm just going to copy this image ID, because we are going to require that as well. So within we have already copied the image ID, so right, so we'll just go ahead and select this, and within this we can see that T2 micro is the free tier eligible instance type. There is no other instance type that is free, so we'll go ahead and use this T2 micro. So T2 micro we are going to use, right? So then we come to count how many instances we do want to launch, right? For now we'll just launch one instance, right? So next thing is security group IDs. So we have already noted down the security group ID, which is this one, right? So we'll just go ahead and paste this, and once this is done, we'll just go through. We have provided all the options with the correct IDs, and as we can see, we did it. So we'll just execute this command, and we will see that one instance is created with the status of pending, right? So we can go ahead and check through the GUI as well. Right, so as we can see here, one instance is running and it is initializing. So now that we have launched the instance, we will go ahead and connect with the instance, right? So for now we can see the instance description with the command describe instances, right? So we need to put the instance ID as well in this, right? So I don't have the instance ID, but we can get it from the GUI as well as from the CLI. So if you guys want to note down the instance IDs, you can just execute the command EC2 describe instances. It will give you the instance ID for all the instances, but it gave me at the beginning of the output the instance that I recently created, because I just have one instance launched. So if you have multiple instances, you just need to go through it, and you can see the reference by the key attached, or maybe the IP address, the public IP address, that will help you identify your instance, right? So once we have the instance ID, we can go ahead and describe the instance. Right, so now as I can see that the whole description of the instance ID is before me, which contain that there are no block device attached instead of the root block device, which is the EBS block device, right? So we need to attach one more volume which will act as a persistent storage for the instance, right? So for that, we'll go ahead and create a volume. So you guys can go ahead and browse the documents for that with AWS EBS volume CLI, right? So it will give you the document for creating and describing and everything, right? So you can go ahead and browse through the document, and you can see that the volume creation and everything, right? So now we will go ahead and as I have already typed in the command for the volume create, I'll go ahead and use this, right? So once I execute this command, the volume will be created, and it will be created in the availability zone AP South 1B. Now there is one more important thing about EBS, which is that EBS is a zonal service, right? So what means is that with zonal services, we need to if we want to connect two services that are zonal services, we need to make sure that both of them are operating in the same zone, right? So as you can see with the description of the instance ID, that the zone that I've selected for the instance is AP South 1B, right? So I need to go ahead and create a volume in that particular zone for us to be able to use that, because if it is in another zone, there will be no connection established with the device that I want to create. For now, we are going to use GP2, right? So once I execute this command, I can see that the volume will be created. We can also go ahead by checking the GUI console for this, and as you guys can see that a volume of 1 GB is created, right? So this size denotes the GIB. It's in GIB. The size denotes the size of the volume that we want to create. So we mentioned 1 GIB. So for now, I have the volume created. I want to attach it, right? So for attaching the volume, you can go ahead and browse through the documentation as well with the command of, say, attach volume and CLI. So you'll get the documentation, official documentation for that. For now, we already have the command with us, so we'll go ahead and use this command as well. So in this, we can see that the attached volume device name would be this one. You can give it any other name if you want to, but I've chose this name, and the instance ID would be the one instance that I've launched and I want to attach it. So now in the description of the instance, we can see there is one particular instance ID key, and the value is this one. So we'll go ahead and copy this and we'll put it in instance ID, right? So the volume ID will be present in the description of the volume that I just created, and it's already here. So I'll go ahead and copy the volume ID as well. So once we do that, we'll execute it, and we will see that the volume is attached. It's in attaching mode, attaching state rather, and it will be attached soon, right? So we can go ahead and confirm it through the GUI console that it was available, but now it's in use, right? So now we'll go ahead and connect to our instance with the browser, right? So for that we need to select the instance and then go ahead and connect with the instance. You can choose any one of this, but for now I'm going to choose the browser connect. That will help us to connect with the instance. And as you can see that for the Amazon Linux to AMI, the browser connect option is available. It is not available for other AMIs. So if you want to connect to your AMI using browser, or rather your instance using browser, you need to choose the Amazon Linux to AMI, right? So now I'll go ahead and switch to the root user, and once I switch to the root user, I'll check the devices attached, and as I can see there are two devices. So the first device is the root device, and the second device that I just attached right now is the EBS block device, right? So before using the EBS block device, we need to partition it, and then we need to format it, and then after we can attach it with the instance that we just created. So for now I am going to partition the device, and I need to provide the device name for this, and the command for the partition will start with N, which means new partition, and go ahead and execute that, and then we will just press enter, and we'll go by the defaults for the first sector, last sector, and then for saving it we'll press W. So once we have done that, we can go ahead and check that do we have a new partition. Yes, we have a new partition now, and the size of the new partition is 1023 MB, right? So now we'll go ahead and format the partition. So the command for formatting the partition is name, and then we will execute it, right? So as you can see that it is formatted, and now we can go ahead and attach our drive, or I can say our device with the instance. For that we need to create a mount point in the instance, and for that we'll go ahead and create directory inside the instance, and I will just name the directory pen drive. Then we can mount the device onto the directory, which is the pen drive directory that I just created, and then the EBS block device will be attached to our instance. So for that the command will start with mount, and then we need to provide the device name that we want to mount, and then the directory name or the mount point where we want to mount the device, right? So as we can see, it's mounted. Now you can go ahead and create whatever you want. For example, we create a basic file a.txt, right? So we can see that the file got created, and this is the mount point, and this is connected with the EBS block device that we just created with the lost and found. So now you can go ahead and use this and place files in it, and place directory and files within that, and you can place all of them inside the block device. And even if the instance is terminated or stopped, the block device is persistent, so it will retain all the directory, all the files that you place in it, and later you can go ahead and use that device or attach it to some other instance, and then you don't need to partition and format it because it's already done. This is a one-time procedure, and then you just need to create a mount point like this, and you just need to mount the device onto the mount point, and you will receive all the files because it is a persistent device. So we will see this demo in the upcoming videos on how to use the persistent storage so that our data is secure. For now, this is it. Please feel free to provide your feedback, and please stay tuned for upcoming videos. Thank you.